of light, one of a set of what we call the pink books, channeled by the present day Jesus. Page 15, walk freely in the light. Let your light shine and express what you are. You are a jewel, shining and bright, casting a beautiful design from the brilliance deep within your being. Find joy in the beautiful individual nature that you are. The light within you is a vibration so refined that it lifts and heals. It emanates from you at all times. Give over to God within, knowing that light is clarity, enlightenment, and truth. All right. Clarity, enlightenment, and truth. Today's speaker speaks with clarity, enlightenment, and truth. She's a teacher, a leader, a minister, gives classes, does all these things online too, as well as here. And today she was speaking on remembering St. Patrick's Day. So let's welcome Reverend Mary Ann Kelley.
Good morning, thank you.
Good morning.
Thank you, Elaine. Nice intro. Thank you. Well, St. Patrick. I know I'm Irish. My name's Kelley, so yes, I'm Irish. But I never really, except when I was younger, I really enjoyed St. Patrick's Day because of all the frivolity and, fun and green beer and corned beef and cabbage. Although I did bring some of that for you today, some corned beef and cabbage, and it's in the kitchen, ready to imbibe, so join us later. Well, St. Patrick wasn't always called saint. He was born in the 5th century in England. He was a Romanized English person. In other words, there was some thought that he was actually born in Italy, but he wasn't. He was not Italian, he was British. But he was, his father and his grandfather were deacons and leaders in the Christian church at the time, Christian movement at the time. But when he was 16 years old, he was kidnapped by some Irish people, hauled off to Ireland. And during his time there, they put him to work as a shepherd. He wasn't much of a Christian because he was not a learned man. He was not at all. He didn't know how to read, didn't know how to write, didn't know how to do any of those things. But as he was tending his sheep, where have we heard that before? As he was tending his sheep, he had a vision. And because he was in this state where he didn't want to be there, and he was forced to be there, he started thinking, maybe praying like he saw his father and his grandfather doing, and he began to develop a relationship with God, with his understanding of what it was at that time. And he began to have visions. And one night he was told that his ship had come. It was time for him to go back to England. And so he escaped, got on a ship, and was hauled back to England, to his family, which he really enjoyed. And he was happy to be back, but he was a changed person. He was now in his early 20s. And he began his studies, began to learn. But he was a simple man. He wasn't an elite or anything like that. He, I guess they called them Romanized families in Great Britain. But when his feast is on March 17th, as you know, and there are lots of legends that are attributed to him. For instance, that he miraculously drove all of the snakes out of Ireland. The fact of the matter is there were never snakes in Ireland. It's an island. There are no snakes there. There never were. What he did was he brought brought the people together and taught them about Christ and baptized a whole bunch of people, a whole lot of people. And so he Christianized. One of the symbols of the Druids was a snake.
Yeah.
It was a symbol of life, death, and rebirth, because every season it sheds its skin. So what he did drive out, or he didn't drive totally out, were the Druids. They're still there, by the way. If you ever go over there, you might see some of their wonderful things. Anyway, so that was, but that's what that really meant. So that wasn't snakes, like we think of snakes. That was the beliefs in paganism and things like that. So he didn't drive it out, but he overcame it by Christianizing the nation. But that was after he went back. What caused him to go back was another dream when he was back with his people. And later in life, he wrote what he called a confessio, which was his life's confession, where he tells of a dream after his return to Britain, in which Victoricus delivered him a letter headed "The Voice of the Irish." And he read it, and it seems certain that a company of Irish beseeched him to walk once more among them. In other words, they wanted him to come back. And he thought, no, he couldn't read anymore because he knew that he had shortcomings in vocabulary, in learning. He was not a learned man, but he knew what he knew, and he channeled what he needed to, what God wanted him to speak. Mm-hmm. And so here we find that St. Patrick was a channeler. He was a dreamer. He was a prophet in his time. And so he resisted going back to Ireland. He resisted it totally. But as the day came, he resisted it, even almost not getting back on the ship to go back. But he did. He went back. And that's one of the tales that tell about him. He went back. One of the other things that he did, he was grateful for the guidance that he was getting, even though he didn't always understand it. He was grateful for the guidance that he was getting. He was getting them in dreams. He was getting them in his meditations, and he was getting him as he was walking along. You know, he was just living rather than learning the Christ inside. And he knew, and he did in his confessions talk about that. I have a couple of things from his, I did download his confessions because I thought that would be something interesting. I never thought too much of St. Patrick, except for St. Patrick's Day. So this was kind of an interesting thing, and I'm not going to read the whole thing to you because it's pages and pages long, but I did find a couple of things that you might find interesting. That he continuously prayed and gave thanks to his Maker for having chosen him as an instrument whereby the multitudes who had worshipped idols and unclean things, had become people of God. So that was one of the things. It is written, it is said, and he wrote of it in his confessions also, that he had helped raise from the dead 33 men. 33 men in the 12th century. And he also reportedly prayed for the provision of food for hungry sailors traveling by land in a desolate area. And what happened? A herd of swine appeared. So they were fed. So these are things that are attributed to him. I have a couple of other things here I'd like to tell you about him. He's quite an interesting man, actually. As a young boy, this is something he wrote. A young man, almost a beardless boy, I was taken captive before I knew what I should desire, and what I should shun. So consequently today, I am ashamed and I am mightily afraid to expose my ignorance because, not eloquent, with a small vocabulary, I was unable to explain as the Spirit was eager to do, and the soul and the mind indicated. So he had all this stuff coming up, but he didn't know what to do with it. Yeah. So then he says, in another one, he says, I am then, first of all, a countrified in exile, evidently evidently unlearned, one who is not able to see into the future, but I know for certain but before I was humbled, I was like a stone lying deep in the mire. And he that is mighty came and in his mercy raised me up, indeed lifted me up high, and placed me on top of a wall. And from there I ought to shout out gratitude to the Lord for his great favors in this world and forever, and then in the mind of man cannot measure. So that's some of his writings. There's another one that I wanted to share with you. And this also is in his confessions. So, another night, God knows, I did not know whether him or me, or whether within me or beside me, most words, which I heard and could not understand, except that at the end of the speech, it was presented thus: He who gave his life for you, he it is who speaks within you. Oh, he's channeling Jesus. And thus I awoke joyful. So, there you go. Channeling Jesus in his dreams. How about that? We can do that, you know. And on the second occasion, I saw him praying with me. And I was as it were inside my own body. And I heard him above me, that is, above my inner self, his inner self, okay? Mm-hmm. He was praying powerfully with sighs. And in the course of this, I was astonished and wondering. I pondered what it could be who was praying within me, or who it could be who was praying within me. But at the end of the prayer, it was revealed to me that it was the Spirit. The Spirit. And I awoke and remembered the Apostles' word. Likewise, the Spirit helps us in our weakness. For we know not how to pray as we ought. But the Spirit himself intercedes for us with sighs too deep for utterance. And again, the Lord our advocate intercedes for us. So it is the God within. And one more thing I'd like to share. I saw a vision of a document before my face, without honor, and I meanwhile heard a divine prophecy saying to me, we have seen with displeasure the face of those who have chosen to divest of his. There was one who attacked his good name. That's what this is about. Divested of his good name, and he did not say, you have seen with displeasure. But we have seen with displeasure. This is his vision, as if he included himself, capital H-E, included himself. He said, therefore, he who touches you touches the apple of my eye. So you see, he channeled a lot. And so, and a lot of various miracles were attributed to him. And one of the ways that he explained the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, was taking a 3-leaf clover and showing that on one stem, the 3 parts are of one. So that's how he explained it. And since he was a simple man, it took simple things like this, and this is how he was able to convert a lot of the Irish people of the day to Christianity. And to this day, a lot of them are, but the Druids are still there. He didn't wipe them all out. The snakes are still there. So, but this is what St. Patrick tells us, that even in those days, so New Thought is not really new. The gifts are not really new gifts. They've always been with us. All we have to do is to be willing. And as he was in captivity as a boy, he knew that there was something more, and he was not happy where he was. And so he developed a relationship with God as he understood it at that time. And this is what we do, as we understand it at this time. And as we have the desire to be one with that, or to understand that, that's how we come to places like this. And that's how the inner Christ speaks through us and acts through us and guides us. And so we thank you, Saint Peter, or not Saint Peter, him too, but Saint Francis. And we thank, not Saint Francis either, this is Saint Patrick, lots of saints out there. And they all, and when you start reading this about any of them, you're gonna find this theme running through. It's like the classes that we teach. It's like where we are today, and tuning in to that higher self. That's what it is. And so we say, thank you, wonderful God, in all of us. So it is, so let it be, and thank you for listening to my talk today.
Thank you.
You bet. A little bit of history there.